And in these times, I would think hyperlocal news is quite important. Where does that stand as far as your efforts to maintain the status quo when it comes to the revenue stream for public access television like ACMi right here in Arlington?
Well, I've introduced legislation to keep it just as it is in terms of the revenues that the local cable access channels are able to receive so that they can provide that local service that provides the town square for Arlington as opposed to some other city or town in the Commonwealth, because people go there to get information about their hometown. And we don't want to in any way reduce the amount of funding. So I've introduced legislation to protect all that funding. The Trump administration is trying to reduce that funding significantly. There's a case now in the federal courts to try to reverse what Trump is trying to do. But I think the best way to do it is just ultimately to pass a law. And that's what I'm doing with Congresswoman Anna Eshoo from the state of California, so that we can move together to make sure that that funding stream stays there for local cable access channels like the one in Arlington, which is just a superior example of a service that is just indispensable to a community, but it's also tailored to that community and its needs.
Does it embolden you to hear that the FCC just levied the largest fine in the FCC's history, nearly 90-year history, against Sinclair Broadcast Group, which is a well-known right-wing corporation that owns nearly 200 stations nationwide, and it's quite known that they do inject in all their local affiliates, and their newscasts especially, their political bias, their right-wing political bias. So that to me would make it even more certain that public access television is more important than ever, because stations like ACMi are not beholden to their stockholders, nor do we have to listen to the political agenda of the CEO.
Thank you. And by the way, that was a Republican, a Jeet Pai chaired Federal Communications Commission that levied that fine. So that's pretty unique. And again, it just comes back to the kind of news that you're able to provide for Arlington on an ongoing, unbiased basis, providing the facts, just the facts for the people in Arlington. So yes, it absolutely makes that case.
Well, it makes us feel better too. So we certainly appreciate your efforts on this. Last question: what can you tell Arlingtonians? We're all, as Americans, we're all getting mixed messages. We're hearing that it's safe to go out in baby steps. Then we hear these dismal numbers that may go out through the summer. What can you tell Arlingtonians who want to go back to work, want to get their lives back?
It's how do we go back? And so when gets answered by how, and how means we have enough testing, we have enough contact tracing, that there's enough personal protective equipment, and we don't have enough in each one of those categories. So we just, have a president who received $25 billion from the United States Congress for testing of personal protective equipment just 2.5 weeks ago. And he still hasn't created a national program to deal with this issue. So from my perspective, everyone wants to go back to work, okay? But we have to make sure we do so safely that we don't trigger a second wave of coronavirus that may match or even be worse than this one. And that's going to be dependent upon whether or not we put in place the public health safeguards, which every public health official is telling us we have to do. So I think that we're going to have to do this on a gradated basis, trying our best to learn lessons as we're going along, but without testing, without contact tracing, without personal protective equipment at the sufficient level, it will ultimately be something that comes back and boomerangs into yet another spike in the contraction of the disease.
Well, Senator Markey, we certainly appreciate your time. There's a lot of important legislation going through Capitol Hill, and we just want you to stay safe, and we look forward to talking to you in the near future, sir.
Again, thanks for having me on. Thank you.